going to have a moment of silence for Joseph Callahan, passed away this Sunday. A man who was active in many community organizations, including the chairperson of the Tarrytown Transportation Council for many years. So if we can have a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. What I think we will do is we have the swearing in of our newest police officer. We'll start with that, and then we'll go back to our original agenda. So, Rocco, if you'd like to come up. And then afterwards, I know you're going to have your parents come up to pin you. Okay, if you raise your right hand. Do you, Rocco J. Romano, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, support the Constitution of the State of New York, support and uphold the laws and regulations of the Village of Tarrytown, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of police officer of the Tarrytown Police Department according to the best of your ability? Yes, sir. Thank you. Have your parents come? Yep. Put a hole in your nice suit. There you go. Secret button. I remember when you got here. Yeah. Chief, do you wish to say anything or no? No, he usually doesn't. Yeah, right. I don't want to keep anybody here, so if those who would like to, you're welcome to stay or welcome to take off. It's up to you. We'll give you a few seconds to clear.
See you later, Adam.
Bye. Take care. Good job, Mom.
Detective Burns,
Yeah.
we have. Take care. Good kid.
I cleared the house.
Yeah.
There we go. It's fascinating, wasn't it?
Yeah. We actually have a long agenda for, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here.
Well, don't shut
And I have a lot of things to announce too, and I don't know about anybody else, but. One more moment and we'll resume.
That was nice.
Let's see. There must be a website. Yes. Okay. Back to the regular agenda. Any miscellaneous liaison reports down this side? Beck?
Oh, well, you know, the pool is getting ready to be opened. We have tennis lessons going on. We have yoga and Pilates. We have classes going in almost every morning at the rec center now. So I encourage you, if you haven't been down there yet, to visit, or if you haven't been, well, you have to come down and visit it, and then you'll sign up automatically. But just keep your eyes and ears open for when the pool opens up on May 25th.
And we are going to send out a village-wide reminder to all the residents.
Mm-hmm.
The pool is available for residents and also the fitness center. So
Right.
we're going to
Double-
capture two birds with one
Yes.
stone.
Come out now.
You think maybe you should mention the recreational permit?
Oh, we can do that, yeah. At the end of the month, you will, if you want to park in parking lot E, right? Which is the recreation lot. You will need to get another sticker. If you have a sticker on your car, you need to come in and renew it for this year. If you do not have a sticker and you would like to be able to park in Lot G when you're at the fitness center or when you're swimming or when you're down by the park, it's for Terrytown residents only. You can come into Village Hall and you can see Joan Malone at the desk, and you need to bring in a copy of your registration, and there is a form to fill out, and it's free.
Lot E, right?
Lot E, is it Lot E?
E.
Lot E, yeah,
But
it's
it
the
also,
one.
actually, it's also important to have the sticker because if you do want to use one of the other lots at the waterfront after 2 PM, that
Yeah.
allows you to park there for free as well.
It's a good thing to come and get.
Right. So, if you have a regular commuter parking permit, you don't need the recreation parking
Right,
for any of this.
if you're a resident,
But
yes.
if you don't have the regular commuter parking permit, you do want to get a recreation permit.
One for each car, too,
You need it for Lot E
Yeah.
and right.
no matter what you need it, yeah.
And the other lots also, if you're coming down to take a train at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, going to a Yankee game, so.
It'll go, yeah. Hi,
Can
Karen.
you download the form and send in a picture of your registration just in case you can't make it to Village Hall during business hours? So you
Okay.
could do it online without having to mail, oh, so you can do it online?
Wow.
I'm used to
Yes.
talking to my seniors.
Yeah, go do it
We're in
online.
2015.
Well, the way Becky was explaining it, and excuse me, we're talking about,
Technology.
you know, the way Becky was explaining it.
Yeah,
Carol,
absolutely.
you could even print out the pass even?
No, that has to be mailed to you.
Okay, then.
So you have to. They can mail it,
Come on.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
So-
you.
So let me ask another question on that too. So if you print out the form and you Xerox a copy of registration, you can actually mail it in also? Okay.
We also might as well mention if you want to kayak on the lakes,
Oh, yeah.
that you,
Why don't we
Can
say
get a
that?
permit?
Sure.
right? Since it's becoming kayaking season,
Yes, it
certainly.
is.
And you need a permit, resident permit, which is $50 for the year? Okay.
And you have to
And-
kayak to bring it
Yep.
in.
And kayak storage, if we're just going to continue talking about
That's true.
kayaks.
Recreation.
You can store your kayak
For, in the
for
river-
$150.
The riverfront.
Down by the riverfront,
Right.
yep, yep. It's all in our nice little brochure, which you can also download, and it's online too.
But
Well, and then, actually, Becky, that's an excellent point, and I'd like to ask the board, we've been asked to, we were definitely planning to add more racks down at the Hudson
Oh,
River.
yeah.
But we've been asked if we would add racks up at the Terrytown Lakes. Is
Lakes.
that something the board wants to consider?
I would think so. If
But
you-
keeping in mind, we do have the kayak
Person
The
up
rental.
there, yeah.
Rental.
vendor
Right.
who
Or current-
operates up at the lakes.
The current ones you said are all full?
No,
There's
we don't
none
have
at the
any at the
lakes,
lakes.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have any at the lakes?
Hey, do we have a
Have we
lot of
had requests for
kayakers?
it? That's, I
Yeah,
think, the
We've
question.
had one request for
One
it.
request.
I mean, I'm not so
I don't
inclined
know.
to do it at the lakes because people can port their, it's a vista, it's a view thing. You know, the question is where are we gonna put it?
Right.
I'd
Yeah.
kind of rather
Yeah,
have people
having
port their
unattended
kayaks
boats
in
sitting
and out.
by the lake.
But I just
to me
wanted to
doesn't-
see, you know, we
Yeah.
don't have to decide tonight,
Right.
maybe you think about it.
Why don't we see if how much interest comes
Yeah,
with the
let us
permits,
know.
and we
Okay.
can,
Yeah,
But I would definitely add
I
racks.
doubt that there'll be a lot of people who'd want to do that because it's not something you just do over and over.
I would
again
definitely
all
add
night.
racks at the river. So-
Well, there's been a lot of information, and just to be clear, you can boat on the Terrytown Lakes, but it does require a permit. I just want to make this, pardon me? Residents
Residents
only,
only,
and it's
correct.
$50, and you have to be at Village Hall for that permit. Just want to make everything clear here.
Define boating.
Boating, define boating? Define boating. Boating would be a kayak or a canoe or a rowboat. No motorized, nothing motored.
Right,
Anything
the
without a motor.
vehicle actually is what, not the vehicle, but like the kayak itself, the vessel, that's the word I'm looking for, actually gets the registration, not the permit,
It
person.
gets slapped on the side of the
Right,
boat.
it's, right, you're registering, it's not the person,
Oh, I
it is
got to
the
stop
boat.
wearing mine.
You have to register your vessel, register your vessel.
Yes.
all right? All right.
Okay, are we done?
Anybody else? Any reports?
Speaking of
Okay, I got a
kayaks.
bunch of things, unfortunately. I'll start out with, up at NICOM meeting, which is the New York Council of Municipal Officials and Mayors, statewide organization. The village, which is really our staff and is Carol, Rich, Jim, and other staff, we won an award. I received it, but it's from the New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal for the outstanding performance of the village in their dealings on insurance items and the reducing the rate of claims. I guess we were number one.
Wow, that's great.
So we got a very nice
So, and that's,
award.
thank you, but it's also, you know, it's the department heads, it's all
Right,
the staff,
everybody.
it's everybody working together as a team. You know,
Yep.
so it's really, you know,
Actually called Risk Management Award.
Risk
yes, risk management award.
Let's see, it says, in recognition of a commitment to sound risk management, safety, and training that makes a difference.
Good.
There you go.
Yep.
All right. Getting a U.S. passport is getting easier on tomorrow. From 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the corner of Main Street and South Washington Street, the county clerk, his staff will be there if you want to process your passport application tomorrow, instead of having to go into White Plains or elsewhere. So tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., corner of Main Street and South Washington Street. Oh yeah, this is a good one. Household Recycling Drop-Off Day is coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend. May 18th at Stu Leonard Drive, the MRF, the Material Recovery Facility, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Things like automotive fluids, flammable liquids, metal, jewelry, and furniture polishes, pesticides, insecticides, and herbicides, photography and swimming pool chemicals, fluorescent light bulbs, fire extinguishers, propane tanks. Let's see, there's go online to somewhere in the county. I'm not seeing the county site. westchestergov.com, and there must be a way to find the detailed information. But if you have a garage full of stuff like me, this is actually great. Stuff you can't otherwise put out in the garbage and shouldn't put in the garbage, they will take.
It's a great way to get rid of chemicals and
Yeah.
toxic things, you know,
Yeah.
some of the,
Husbands, no, just kidding.
you
Oops.
know, everything.
Appliances with Freon freezers, refrigerators, dehumidifiers, air conditioners, unused pharmaceuticals, which is often hard to get rid of. So explosives, if you have any, motor oil. Oh no, that's what's not accepted, sorry. Explosives are not accepted. Let me make that clear. That's at the bottom of the page. So, yeah, this should actually, is this on our website? Okay, it's on our website as well. And then finally, I want to announce the Sleepy Hollow Lit Fest, which should be the Sleepy Hollow Tarrytown Lit Fest, is May 18th, not this Saturday, but next Saturday also, which is a more than 100 authors, events, vendors across 8 venues, fill one-day family-friendly festival in Tarrytown, Sleepy Hollow. This is the first ever Sleepy Hollow Fest, taking place from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. On Saturday, May 18th. And their website is sleepyhollowlitfest.org. And I assume that there will be a link on our website as well for this. Okay. I'm not going to go through all the different events. You have to go online to find them. And that's it for the reports. And Richard?
Okay, there's a few things on the, in the docket that we're working on. So Drew, you covered the Lit Fest. The big thing that's coming up soon is travel stories. The village is working with the Chamber of Commerce and Historic Hudson Valley and some other organizations to put together a number of stories about locations in Tarrytown that are very, important to the community, but to drivers, to pedestrians, and this is all going to be funded with a state grant, so that's going to be happening soon. We're going to do more general ones to start, and then we'll focus on key areas, and we'll also be able to list all the restaurants and some of the stores, and it's special places like the Tarrytown Music Hall, the Lyndhurst location, Sunnyside, other places close by. So that's happening. I want to thank the Tarrytown Environmental Advisory Committee, TIAC, for an excellent Earth Day celebration. We had, I don't know how many people we had, Bobby, but I think we might have been close to 100, if not more. Yeah. We planted a tree in Nepperton Park. We planted actually a couple of trees in Nepperton Park. We cleaned up around the lakes. So the Lakes Committee and Subcommittee of TIAC was up there with a number of volunteers. So they picked up a lot of garbage and bags around the lakes, around the roads as well. And then we also, although we weren't able to move ahead with the community garden behind
Coffee Funeral.
Coffee Funeral Home, They were able to, they kind of expanded some of the beds and opportunities for people to participate in the community garden at Paulding School.
Right.
So they also had a commitment to environmental protection, and people filled out leaves, and I think they had some kind of display where they would actually tack it to either a board or a tree. And I asked them to see if they would consider setting that up as a display here in Village Hall's lobby for maybe a month or so or something.
People
like that.
committing to mulching leaves?
Well, people
Or
committing
just doing-
to environmental,
generally doing
you know,
so- okay.
positive
Gotcha.
environmental practices. The farmer's market, and I see Tammy and Suzanne are here. We're eager to have them open and start on May 24th? May 25th. It's the first Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, and then it'll go through the end of November, right before Thanksgiving. So we're eager to have that happen. If I remember correctly, Carol, that was approved already, or that's not on the agenda?
It's on the
It is-
agenda.
it's on
Yeah,
the
it's on
agenda
the
for
agenda. Yep.
Okay. We're working with Phelps Hospital to establish a tabletop exercise to plan for, do walkthroughs in anticipation or prevention or management of a major event. So we're just mindful of the things that have happened in a lot of other places, and we want to be prepared and have the proper response, you know, God forbid something should happen. So we're thinking along those lines. I also mentioned to the mayor, we have a few things we need to discuss in executive session, collective bargaining with the lieutenants, a discussion about lease of property, a discussion about a sick leave law question that came up in relation to the library, and the firefighter LoSAP program.
So that's at the end of this meeting.
That'll
We'll
be
go
at
into
the end of the
executive session.
Correct.
Okay.
Rich, down in my neighborhood, there are a lot of Con Ed vans, a lot of Con Ed trucks by the lakes.
Yes.
What are they doing?
The main thing that they are doing up in the vicinity of the lakes is bringing in a new feeder line to supply EF school. So they're getting an upgrade to their gas line
Right.
that goes in
For the new dorm?
for
Or
their
for
new
just something, yeah.
expansion of facilities.
Okay, so, and they're gonna put everything back, right? They dug up that nice little garden,
Which one?
the little garden next
Oh,
to
the one
the,
at the,
yeah.
at the far
yeah.
side of the parking lot?
I mean, I just
Oh,
wanna
You
make,
mean out by the lakes?
yes, down by the lakes. Yeah, they're kinda trudging through a
They're
lot of
destroying
places
everything,
here.
yeah.
I
I'll
know.
mention it to the Con Ed.
Oh, I'll go down there myself, don't worry about it.
Well, if you tell the workers, it'll be one thing. I'll mention it to.
No, I'm just saying that, they, you know, I know they
Sure.
have to do this, but once they're through doing it and they patch everything up, are they gonna open it up again? 'Cause that's
They
what
might.
Yeah. All right.
I'm
Yep.
glad EF was able to get an upgrade with the moratorium and everything.
Yeah, they got it in months ago. I mean, this is something that's been in the process for maybe 6 to 12 months.
I think it's electric and gas.
I think it's both, yeah.
Because I know they were doing an electrical thing months ago.
It's a mess.
Yep.
All right. First order of business is the appointment, actually, of Rocco Romano. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby appoint Rocco J. Romano to the position of police officer, grade 5, in the Village of Tarrytown Police Department at an annual salary of $59,027. Effective May 9th, 2019, this appointment is subject to the provisions of civil service, including a probationary period of not less than 12 weeks and not more than 52 weeks as mandated by civil service law. Be it further resolved that this appointment is made pursuant to receipt of a letter from the Westchester County Department of Human Resources dated April 12th, 2019, granting permission for resignation reinstatement for Rocco J. Romano.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Up next, we have a continuation of a public hearing, the Architecture Review Board requirements, which the resolution will continue it again, but I'll have a motion to open the continued public hearing.
Make that motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody here to talk about ARB? I don't think so. No. Okay, so be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby continue the public hearing on the draft local law to amend Chapter 9 of the Village Code regarding Architectural Review Board requirements to Wednesday, May 20th, 2019, the next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, so that the revised text may be republished prior to adoption, and the Architectural Review Board may submit their reports and comments to the Board of Trustees.
And just, Drew, just a comment on that. The ARB hasn't given us their comments yet.
Yeah.
They're meeting on May 15th to have, you know, and part of their
Right.
agenda is to have this review.
Right, so
Uh,
this may actually be continued to
So
the,
if
Why
we
not?
continue it on the 20th, I don't know what their
Why
comments
not?
are, if they're going to require further changes, so we'll see on the 20th. what-
wait, why would we, it says Wednesday, I read it, didn't absorb it. Wednesday, the 20th is,
It's Monday.
oh,
It's
okay.
Monday.
But should we just continue
Like
it to
continue
the
to June?
following meeting, to the June meeting?
The meeting in June is like
Is
June
June
18th.
18th?
When does the architectural?
So maybe we should amend this resolution to continue it to June 18th?
That's probably,
I don't think there's any harm in doing so. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a rush on this,
Monday the 17th.
Monday 17th. So the resolution amended to, we will
17th.
continue the public hearing to Monday,
Monday, June
June 17th, 2019.
Mhm.
So we have a motion. Did we have a motion?
Yeah.
Motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Similarly, is the public hearing regarding operating bicycles on the sidewalks. We have a continuation of the public hearing, but we also are going to continue this public hearing to the next time. But can I have a motion to open that public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I assume that there are some people here who wish to speak about it.
Trustees, Mayor, staff. My name is Daniel Convisor. I live in Sleepy Hollow, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Bike Tarrytown this evening. We are concerned about the sentence in the existing law talking about impeding traffic. First, when people cycling take the lane, they're doing so intentionally, so the intentionally verbiage really doesn't assuage anything. If the village is thinking of other reasons of intentionally, being in the middle of the street, they're covered by existing disorderly conduct laws already. People cycling in groups, if they are riding single file, it's a long procession of people, it takes longer to pass. If somebody driving wants to pass them, it takes a longer time. And often they'll squeeze in the lane, creating an unsafe situation, trying to share the lane between the people biking and driving. It's quite dangerous. If people cycling are in a bunch, then the person driving past them has to change lanes and has to be much more deliberate, and it's a shorter time of trying to pass them. So it's a safer maneuver.
Dan, I
Yes.
have a question for you. Can you provide any documentation from some sources of that type of thing? Since there are disagreements that I've seen on other items. I just saw something by a Missouri biking group that was talking about sidewalk and discouraging sidewalk.
Well,
basically.
I discourage
So,
cycling on the
so-
sidewalk too,
right.
but there are certain
All I'm
situations
saying,
where,
it's not a question of arguing about that in particular, but rather, is there some actual documentation out
I
there
have
that
not
you can?
seen studies to that effect. It's just
Okay,
personal experience.
Right.
And,
I mean,
you know,
because I've seen in Piermont, for example,
yeah,
there are signs along River Road where there's
Yes.
a lot of bicycling,
Right.
where they require people to ride single file.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Well, you know,
think it's
Dan,
a law?
I think it's the
there's
law.
another point I wanted to make, is we did add in the reference, the operation of bicycles on roads is allowed pursuant
Yeah.
to New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law. But this is in any manner to impede or interfere
Yeah.
intentionally. Riding on the simple act of riding a bicycle on the road is not impeding or interfering with traffic. People have the right to be there on a bicycle,
Yeah.
just like everybody else.
Well, that, I mean,
If
that,
they're riding in circles in the middle of Route 9 and yelling, like you said,
well, then you have
public
disorderly
disturbance.
conduct to cover that.
No, not exactly.
Sure
It
you
all
do.
depends.
Sure you do. You don't
All
need
I'm
a
saying-
local
Dan,
law
all
to
I'm
cover
saying
this.
All I'm saying is it depends.
But you understand what I'm saying. Is if
Riding a
somebody's,
bicycle
if somebody's
on the street is not
protesting
impeding
in the middle of the street,
traffic.
then you have laws already to cover that situation. You don't need a special local law to cover that. Because if I went into the middle of Broadway right now, on a bike or on foot or whatever, and I was disrupting,
If
police
you were
would come and
to,
arrest me.
if you were to stop your bicycle in the middle of the road, or 5 people were stopping.
Or not even on a bike, just anyway.
But that would be intentionally impeding traffic as opposed to riding on the road.
Yes.
Sure.
So I think
But-
there is,
but
I think
then-
there actually is arguments to be made that there are areas which would be more clearly defined to those who are riding if you have that additional notification
I
in the
think-
law, as opposed to relying on people to understand what all of the public nuisance issues
No,
are,
I
which
think
are generally applied to
actually,
much more,
my
much
final-
more difficult behavior than what we're talking about.
My final point in what I'm going to say here is that you're creating, I have other points I'd like to make, but the closing, answering your issue there, is that you're creating an arbitrary local law that is imprecise and it's already covered in state law. All this stuff is covered in state law. You don't need
I
to
think you
make a
can
local law
argue
for
it in
this.
the other way as well, that state law already covers normal bike riding on the road. I think
Right, so
that's the
you-
arguments that's made, so that normal, acceptable, responsible behavior is clearly allowed, and this would not apply to it.
But it does, because it can be arbitrarily interpreted to
Well,
be
you can't overrule
Intentionally.
state law that allows for regular riding.
But
It doesn't,
yes, you can. I mean, look at the folks in
we can't
Piermont.
write a
In
law.
Piermont single file
We
law.
can't write a
Piermont
law.
single file law is overriding state law.
No, it's not
I
necessarily.
think it is the law. You should check with John.
Yeah, well, it may even be the law.
So-
Well, we talked with the police chief about this language, and he was fine with it. We've also talked with other people in the biking community, and they were fine with it. So if you want to suggest another alternative that would work better,
What I'm saying,
Please
that
feel free to-
the last sentence is unnecessary.
No,
it-
we'll take
But
that as
it-
your opinion, and we'll take a look at it.
Seriously, you're creating a local
Okay.
arbitrary law that people from around, if somebody's riding from the other side of the county or the other part of the
Mm-hmm.
state or the country, they're gonna pass through here, they're not gonna know what this
well,
law
Dan,
is.
let's put it this way. In terms of the 259-52, this law was already on the books, but it was focused on no person shall operate
Yeah, about
a
skating,
skateboard,
yeah.
inline skates, or other
Yeah, well,
roller
inline skates is already contrary to state law.
And it had in any manner to impede or interfere with pedestrian or vehicular traffic. That was already in there.
Right.
All we did was add, because we added bike to that section of the law, we added intentionally to end the other reference to the state law to say
Right,
that.
but the inline skates are already covered in state law. So, again,
We'll
this
take a
this
look
is-
at it, and we'll determine whether or not single file is in fact, or multiple people riding is covered or not covered. So we'll take a look at
Look,
it.
so you're,
I'm not
It-
sure, there's agreement with what you're saying.
yeah,
You're making a statement, it's your opinion, that having 25 bikers biking in a group on the road is in fact better than having 25 bikers along the side.
Mhm.
yes.
So I
If-
don't
if-
know that, and in fact,
Yes.
in many places, that would be, there's clearly be more impeding, since if you were in the portions of Route 9 where there is plenty of room and cars aren't parked, it would be way safer to have bikers single file
Okay,
than to
so
have them,
how much,
have them in.
have you
a
ridden in
group.
Pelotons? I mean, what's your experience in cycling?
It's my experience being on the road,
Okay, driving.
walking, driving,
Yeah,
and observing, just like it doesn't, that's where we're talking about. So it's not a question of being on Pelotons or not. It's a question of experiencing the world, and you're having one set of experiences as a biker, which you're telling us.
mhm.
But that doesn't mean that it is necessarily correct. We'll take that under advisement, what you think. I really don't think that a group of 25 bikers in a clump in Route 9 by Transfiguration Church, that area, is better than 25 bikers alongside the road.
So here's what happens. Someone driving
Mhm.
will try to pass a long group of cyclists,
Mhm.
and they will try to do so squeezing in the lane or just moving a little bit
Moving over, yes.
over the lane.
In fact,
and
yes.
leaving inadequate space, creating a dangerous situation.
And if there's two or three, they may pass, and they may also do the same thing. That's why I asked
But
you,
what-
can you provide?
so in that situation-
Dan, in order to determine whether this makes sense one way or the other, we need some evidence. So that's what
But
I'm
you don't
asking.
have
I'm
evidence
asking you
for your
to
single
provide.
file
I'm asking you to
situation.
provide that.
Do you have
If you're
do you-
making an argument that's contrary to what's been advised to us. So if you're gonna make an argument, it's helpful to have some evidence to
I
support
hear
it.
you, I hear you.
All right? I mean, I understand your reasoning.
Yes, but do you have evidence that single file is better?
I don't need to.
No, yes you do.
No, I don't. We know that impeding traffic intentionally is not a good thing. That's what we don't want to
So
happen.
is-
So you're
is-
arguing
Is
that
riding in a Peloton going to be considered,
I don't know what you're talking about.
riding in a group more than one abreast,
No.
is that going to be considered impeding traffic?
I don't know. If it depends on the circumstances we're talking about
And the location.
and the location. It's going to be dependent on where you're talking about and the circumstances and how it's being done.
Yep.
And the idea is that we are going to have, in all likelihood, a great deal of increased bike traffic.
Right.
Enormous, possibly.
Mhm.
And that's what this is intended to try and deal with. And those possibilities. So that's the idea. It's not to stop people from biking.
But
And your
the
opinion
interpretations
and
of that,
experience. And there's other, that's
you know.
why, all I'm saying is that if you could provide us with some evidence, some testimony of some sort, that the circumstances in which you're discussing are supported, we will look at it.
Great.
Okay.
So
Um,
so keep going. We're not going to determine it here,
No, sorry, no.
all right?
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think that there's kind of a widespread misunderstanding about street space in general, that they're for people driving. Streets are public spaces that are shared by everybody.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we need to keep that in mind, you know, because the idea that someone in a car, even as a single person in a car, they're taking up the whole width of this lane. And like, so two people are taking up the width of the lane, but they're biking? I mean, so we're using the public space.
It's not defined as taking up the entire width, and it's not defined that you have to ride in single file, unless it's in the state law, which is, I don't know.
There are parts of the state law that specify when you're being passed, you need to single up.
You already has.
Okay,
That's fine.
So,
well, that would hold, so, if it's state law, but.
so.
And I agree with you 100% that the road is a place to be shared by bikers and cars and pedestrians. And that's the issue, is how you control that, how you regulate it.
Yep.
And that's what we're trying to do. But the notion is incredibly important that people learn and drivers learn that bikers belong on the road,
Mhm.
which is part of what the effort is. It does it, but you have to sort this out, and it's not one necessarily over the other. And sometimes you will feel that it's favoring cars, and sometimes it'll feel like it's favoring bikers. And that's, you know, it's not gonna be one thing or the other. So,
Let's let him continue.
yep.
And a lot of the ire that's coming from Piermont that created these laws about single file and all that stuff, there are people who will be annoyed at having to wait behind people cycling when they're driving. And, you know, they're the same folks who are gonna be annoyed at waiting in the supermarket online behind people. They're just people who are easily annoyed. So we can't legislate around all that. And as I said, this is already covered by state law, and I implore you to realize that you're creating a local arbitrary law that is imprecise and will garner the village a bad reputation
Thank you.
in the cycling community. All right, so that point aside, I think as far as the sidewalk cycling issue, again, I share everyone's concern to have safe environment on the sidewalk for people walking. But we need to realize what the real danger is in Tarrytown, and that is cars on Broadway is the major problem. Over the past 10 years, there have been 343 crashes, resulting in 316 injuries, 12 of which were serious, and 46 of the total injuries were people walking. So the notion
What was the locations of those?
on Broadway.
On Broadway where?
On Broadway, in Tarrytown.
347 crashes on Broadway?
In 10 years, yes.
In 10 years.
10 years, yes. And I provided this data to the raw data to the chief of police. He inquired where this data was from. And that's 2007 to 2016. So, we want to create a safe environment for people walking. The thing we need to do is control motor vehicles. People cycling are not the problem. And I'll provide all this in a PDF to you guys afterward. I didn't have time to print this out. Cycling is safe. The number of people killed by people cycling in the Netherlands, which is where I've seen a lot of people biking,
That's
you know,
for sure.
on average, it's like one a year. One person walking was killed by somebody cycling in this whole country, you know. So it's really a minuscule problem. So let's keep the priorities straight. And then, as I mentioned before, I'll in the PDF I'll send has some photographs of examples of construction activity and how it's treated for people driving or given, you know, bypass lanes, and you know, it's all organized, and when it comes to people walking on the sidewalk, oh, they're just like, oh, good luck, walk in the street, figure it out. So you'll have some images of that in the PDF as well. So, you know, as I mentioned last time, I hope the village will take their concern for pedestrian safety and apply them more broadly to issues in the village to actually make things really safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dan Williams. I was here at the March 18th hearing to speak. I live up in the Crest neighborhood. So biking is very important to me. I bike both with my family as well as a serious mode of transportation. I commute to work by bike. And I do it for a number of reasons that I mentioned last time, including health reasons, environmental reasons, economic reasons, community reasons. So the reason I wanted to come back to speak is because of the wording again in the 259-52C, which is this in any manner to impede or interfere intentionally with vehicular traffic. So this was rewarded since March 18th, but you know, just reading that, the wording sounds very problematic to me. And so what I wanted to do is I thought maybe I could share some of the things that I learned commuting by bike, because you know, at this point I've done thousands of miles on the bike commuting, and the things that I know now and the kind of best practices that I use while riding the bike are different than, they weren't obvious at all. So when I started, I didn't know these things. And the main thing that I wanted to bring up is that in situations where there isn't any dedicated lane or large shoulder, the safest thing that you can do as a cyclist is to take the lane, which means pretty much that you ride right down the middle. And that seems really scary when you're starting, because it seems like you're putting yourself in harm's way right in front of these drivers and the cars, and you know, all the speed and everything. But the reason that you do that is because if you ride too far to the right, which is kind of what you intuitively start off doing, because nobody wants to get in the way of drivers. So if you ride too far to the right, there's a bunch of dangers that you encounter. So the first one is that you become more invisible to drivers. So especially at things like intersections or driveways, drivers, they don't look in the kind of gutter of the road, so it's you know, you can get into scary situations where they legitimately haven't seen you. Also, if you're next to parked cars and things, you kind of get obscured by those. So by riding a little bit farther left in the middle of the lane, you end up being in a space where the drivers are used to looking, and they see you, and you know, they can predict what you'll do a lot more. And you know, as long as you're running predictable and you're acting like a car, then you know, it ends up working out okay. The second thing is that if you're riding very far to the right of the road, then the drivers will pass you at an unsafe distance. And part of this is because they may not see you, and so they just kind of, you know, come by really fast, which is very scary, especially when they're very close. But it can also be that the drivers don't know how much room they need to give you, and especially when they're just trying to squeeze through, this can get very dangerous. So if you move a little bit farther left, then it signals to drivers a lot more clearly that when they pass, they need, you know, they already need to have pretty much an open lane to go, rather than squeezing through. And then the third point is like kind of if you're riding very close to the right, you have this dooring situation, which is that if you have parallel parked cars, the drivers may open their doors without looking back,
Yeah.
and that's very dangerous for a cyclist. So again, if you're riding a little bit farther to the left, you don't end up in that zone.
Clearly in that situation.
So
There's no question.
so these things, and you know, so again, this is like kind of things that I didn't know when I started commuting by bike, but I've learned over the years. What it means is that, unfortunately, in some situations, to stay safe, you have to intentionally be in the middle of the lane, which, you know, to me sounds very much like I'm intentionally impeding and interfering with traffic. And, you know.
But can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How fast do you say an experienced rider such as yourself is going when you're commuting to work?
So, I mean, it very much depends on the terrain and what kind of bike I'm riding.
Along Broadway, say.
So along Broadway, along Broadway, I'm normally staying up with the cars.
So you're not impeding traffic, right? You're flowing with traffic. You're following the rules of the road.
Yeah,
you're being safe. You're not impeding traffic.
So if I'm coming up from the high school, from that direction into Tarrytown, then there's a hill, and I might start going slower than traffic. And, you know, drivers have gotten irritated with me, and they pass in the other lane, and, you know, sometimes they might scowl or yell something at me. And then, you know, I'll catch up to them by the time they get to the thing. But I impeded them enough that they were upset with me, which, you know, doesn't make me feel
But
good.
you're still following the rules of the road. I mean, see, that's the difference. We're looking at this from an intentional standpoint. If somebody's trying to harm the flow of traffic intentionally, if somebody's driving 30 miles an hour in a 40-mile-an-hour zone, it's not impeding traffic. They're driving.
I mean, so I can give you another example. So in the winter, when the bike paths are not clear, riding around the lakes is very dangerous because people drive very fast there, much faster than the speed limit, and you know I can't go there. So if I'm riding 15 miles an hour around the lakes, they're trying to go like 40 or something like that around the lakes, and that's a big differential. And so in that case, I am impeding traffic there, but that's the only safe way if I'm trying to go through the lakes. So you know,
That's fine. That's fine.
But you're not impeding the permitted speed limit, right? You're impeding the speeder. You're not impeding the normal flow of traffic. And as far as people getting upset with you, people, like Dan said, some people just get upset. Some people get upset for you for waiting a second to go when the light turns green. That's just what happens.
I don't know. To me, like I am intentionally getting in the way of the cars, so they must either slow down they must slow down and wait for a safe time to pass.
But you're still following the rules of the road.
Yeah, I am following the state law.
So then
And
that's fine.
yeah, so my right. So I mean, so to me, somebody who has not heard you guys say this, when I read the law, I was like, oh, they're going to change it, so I'm breaking the law all the time, basically. So I think that wording is not sufficient because I'm sure other people like me would interpret this as a problem. And actually that's a point that I wanted to make, is that by reading that, so I mentioned that when I started biking, I rode a lot farther to the right than I do now, and I think that people who are less experienced, by reading a law like this, it would encourage them to be farther to the right. Which again would increases the danger for them, and I don't know how to communicate to other people that they need to learn these same things that I learned, but I feel like this type of law and that type of wording, it really kind of makes it really leads you more into this this interpretation that you are impeding traffic.
Does anyone have any knowledge of tickets being issued to cyclists by our police department?
I'm not aware of it.
It'd be interesting to know.
It depends. I mean, there might be others in other police departments, because I've heard issues about big groups of cyclists, let's say 50 to 100 cyclists going up and down Route 1. You know, so I've heard complaints about that. I know some communities in the Sound Shore area have dealt with that. On Route 9 or anything like that, or anywhere up or down the Hudson, Drew, we meet monthly with the other communities
I've
up and
heard
down the Westchester Hudson Valley, and we've never heard any complaints about, you know, we have big groups of bicyclists, 50 to 100 bikers trying to ride up on a Sunday morning bike ride from 8 in the morning to noon, and they're riding in a pod like dolphins. We've never heard any complaint like that.
So, yeah, I mean, I would also like to just say that the stuff that I read, it doesn't say anything about groups. I mean, if the law is
That's right.
targeted at groups,
It doesn't say anything about groups. That's right.
About groups.
It does not say anything about groups.
It's about
So
it
it's
only
the
says
word
intentionally
intentional
impede.
that bothers you.
well, I mean,
No, it's impede, well, if it's
It's
intentionally,
impeding
right,
intentional.
right.
I think the
It's
thing
whether
is,
intentional covers
So it's
is
a
what we're
matter of
talking about.
communicating to the bicyclists what it is we're concerned about. And,
yeah, if you're concerned,
and you understanding it, so.
yeah, if you're concerned about big groups, maybe the thing should say something about groups or something.
Well, it's interfere or impede intentionally. So if you have another rule or,
Thing.
you know, text you'd like to suggest, Dan, please let us know.
Yeah,
You
maybe
know,
we
we'll
have to
consider
look
it.
at some new words there. I mean, intentionally it's a hard
Okay.
word. And
Yeah.
it's also subjective.
Yeah.
So that's not a good law word.
I mean, you could argue that a group of bicyclists, if moving at a
Speed
normal
limit.
click on the road and they are not in single file, they're not intentionally impeding the traffic. They're making the traffic flow. So it almost allows for a group of bicyclists cycling in an organized group, more than one across, if they're not impeding traffic.
Yeah, no, I mean, the problem is that, like, on the bike, the speeds that you go are so much more variable than they are in the car, because when you start going uphill, the speed that, you know, it can drop from, you know, you might be going 30 miles an hour down a hill, and then, like, you know, all of a sudden you're going less than 10 miles an hour. And
So the issue with this, about the interfere intentionally, is that it seems redundant to the state law. And it seems like then, is the concern then that by having this in here, it will make it almost undue attention to this issue?
The thing that I was concerned about is I thought that this would somehow supersede the state law, and that I would now be breaking the law. That was like my main
It's
concern.
hard to picture what it looks like. We don't have a poster that says this is what intentional
Yeah, so
looks like.
You know, you already,
Yeah, it's a subjective call. We can look it over. I mean, thank you.
Yeah,
It
but,
doesn't say single
no,
file.
it's an what Trustee Zolo just looked up is that when you're being overtaken by a vehicle, you have to ride single file, is the state law.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't still answer the question of should you be to the right or to the middle? And it's, I mean, we actually should look that up and see what the state law pertains to. I don't believe that we can supersede the state law.
well, Drew, it
here.
also kind of depends on conditions, vision, you know,
Right.
visibility.
But there is state law that
speed.
applies.
Yeah, this,
even-
uh,
I mean, the interesting question is, there probably is state law that talks about
Yeah.
where bikes should be.
Yeah.
The state law is you need to ride as far to the right as practicable, but that is open to interpretation of the person riding the bicycle, of what is state, depending on
yeah,
various conditions.
the language they have in the state law says, ride as far to the right as you can, unless, and it has two things, unless you're turning left is one,
Right.
and then unless it is saying reasonably necessary to avoid conditions that would make it unsafe. That's what they say. And what I'm saying is that if you don't have a shoulder or a protected bike lane, it is a condition.
I
where-
got a funny feeling that probably a state trooper would give you a ticket and you would lose your argument. Given the law.
I mean,
That
riding
if
in
you
the
were,
middle of
that
the.
if you were riding on
I
Route
would-
9 in the middle of the road,
I would
and he decided to
Yeah.
stop you.
I would rather lose my argument than lose my life.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that I think quite possibly that the standard interpretation of that state law would probably not hold.
Yeah.
But
So I mean, I can think about if I have any
If you have
thoughts
suggestions
about
or
the
alternatives,
language.
that'd be great.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is that, you know, I mentioned before, I don't just commute by bike, I also bike a lot with my family. So we go to things like, we go to swim lessons, and like we come into town, we go to the library, we go to the park, things like that. So with them, we also sort of have to obey the same best practice thing. But of course, in this case, with the kids who are 5 and 7, are the ages of my kids, the speed on the bike is obviously a lot slower than it is when it's just me. So in these situations, again, riding to the right is not safe. The sidewalk starts to become not a great option because the sidewalk has many hazards, including the same visibility stuff, the driveways, the intersection. All those are still hazards, but the sidewalk, it starts to become attractive as something that will not inconvenience too many drivers too much, and especially when you're with the kids, this makes sense, or it can make sense in some circumstances. So the other thing I wanted to bring up was that the sidewalk, the 259-52-2 would rule out the sidewalks as an option for our family when we're getting around because I'm over 12 and
I actually think we were
Well,
talking
we
about
made a couple of
making a
changes.
change.
I'm not
In
sure
which-
if you've seen those in the agenda.
I didn't see the changes.
Okay, there is, so based on the board's discussion most recently, we added in, so where it says 12 years of age or younger, or disabled persons who cannot walk, or, we added in, or parents or guardians accompanying such persons. So if a parent's with younger children and needs to stay with them, obviously, we're not gonna make the parent ride
Okay,
on the street
yeah.
and the kids in the sidewalk. You stay with the children. Also, on Broadway, and it's not direction of travel, it's the name of the street, North Broadway, South Broadway. So on the west side of the street, it's prohibited from Franklin to Maine and from Maine to Cobb to ride your bike on the sidewalk. But we're looking to allow bikers to be on the east side of the street because it's the least amount of establishments. And
It's wider, it's wider.
it's wider.
Yeah,
So
I'll take
the
another
parent
look at
guardian
that.
thing,
Yeah, thank you. I'll take another look at that. Yeah, so those are the points that I wanted to make. So I mean, I can so I can summarize. I think that this whole taking the lane issue, like what I've learned is that it's crucial for biking safety. I think sidewalks can be a good option, especially for families. I haven't looked at the new stuff, but there might be also something about inexperienced cyclists that I might want to raise because I know of at least I know of at least a couple of adults who say that they would like to start using their bike more, but they're too scared to, and these people wouldn't be covered by the family law. In my opinion, I think that biking on the sidewalk should be allowed if it's done carefully and safe, which I think is covered by 259-52, the A and B parts. But so so what I would suggest is that the 259-52 I guess I don't see the reason for those given the reckless, the A and B of 259-52. But yeah, and then I guess the other thing I want to say is in the longer term, I would like us to also entertain other solutions like protected bike lanes that both improve the safety of the cyclist, they make it so we don't have to do this take the lane stuff, and also they reduce the inconvenience to drivers because we're out of their way. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you.
So Dan, can I ask a question? What was your address?
227 Crest Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want to speak? Do you want to speak on this? Or on something else?
There's something else.
Oh, okay, not,
Related to traffic calming. I don't know if that is.
oh, yeah,
but it's not like-
that's not this public hearing, okay. I mean, it kind of is,
You
but
can
it
speak
isn't.
of it.
Yeah, you can talk at the end. Although, well, okay, speak about bicycles, we'll close this public hearing. I mean, we'll move you up since it's,
Continue the hearing.
we'll
All right.
continue the public hearing.
I'm Ginny Williams, and I also live at 227 Crest Drive. Go figure.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, what a coincidence. Yes, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse here and get into the details of the language, although I am here in support of changing the language, but I think the two Dans that went before me really got into the nitty-gritty. So I'm just going to take this moment to sort of reiterate my support for the community and making the community safer for bikes. So I live up in the Crest, and I want to use my car less for a variety of reasons. I want to be healthier, I want to model a healthy lifestyle, I want less reliance on car, and I want to be kinder to the environment and be more environmentally conscious. And the fact that I live in the Crest and I'm here advocating for bikes tells you something, because, you know, we bike down here, we got to bike back uphill. So there's a lot of people who live closer to town and in town and far more accessible. And so I think if I'm here, there's probably 1,000 people that I'm here representing that have a far less difficult commute to and from town to get here. And so about the language, I definitely encourage you to abandon the language that is perceived by the community as being not supportive of bikes, and also, you know, like if you have this language that is confusing and can be misinterpreted, that can be weaponized against people. You know, being, you know, saying like, hey, don't you know it's illegal to do this? And then someone goes home and looks it up and they don't understand the context. And so I think that can be weaponized against bikes, and I don't think that's fair. I also want to, in terms of speaking about the community and like the 1,000 people who I'm sort of representing, I'm really involved in the community. I'm on a couple of local boards, and I'm also very involved in my children's school. So I know a lot of young families, and we are this community is undergoing a changing demographic with a lot of younger folks who have, I'm not saying I'm young, but they have young families, so. And we want our community to be responsive of our changing modes of transportation, trying to be more conscientious about using our car less, taking up less parking spaces. And I really think, and I've spoken to many people about this, and there's a lot of people who are nervous and scared, and they don't understand the rules of the road, and I think a lot of this complicates it. And just to sort of support making our community more friendly for bikes. And I just feel like some of the language that's being talked about here, like this word, this thing about like large groups of bikes, and I do have to say, I'm a little disappointed to hear this like fear of the large groups of bikes, because why aren't we talking about, you know, the large groups of cars? I mean, I know cars are part of the reality, but there's a changing desire for more accessibility. I feel like to a certain extent, some of this language seems to be vilifying bikes, and I think there's a little bit of complacency about like the car culture. You guys are kind of complacent. Some of this language, you're perpetuating the car culture and then the entitlement of cars. And when you're on your bike and you're out there, cars are entitled, and they edge up on you and they like threaten you. And I think some of the language and some of what's going on here is sort of complacent to that. So just, I guess I kind of challenge you to be a bit more responsive to the needs of the biking community and subsequently the pedestrian community. And I think if we're really worried about pedestrian safety, to me, the biggest, as someone who walks around town, I'm out and about and walking around town, the crosswalks, I wouldn't worry about bikes on the sidewalks. I'd start and look about crosswalks, because how many times are you trying to cross the road and people just blow by? Like, let's maybe focus, if we're worried about pedestrian safety, I encourage you to tackle that issue first and foremost, instead of vilifying the mobs of bikes that are going to be coming through. So just something to keep in mind. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys don't want to talk about bikes? So we'll have a motion to.
Support the bikers.
Yeah.
We're gonna just, you think that simplifying the language is probably smart, but that's not my
Okay. So I'll take a motion to continue the public hearing until Wednesday, May 20th, 2019.
Monday.
What's that? Oh, Monday, yes, it's Monday. Sorry, Monday, May 20th. Second?
So moved, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's the opportunity for the public to address the board on agenda items, but it's not on the agenda, but come on up.
I'm actually here at the invitation of Trustee McGovern. My name is John Rosenblatt. Good evening, Mayor, Trustees. This is my son, Wyland James.
Aye.
And I would like to read an email that I wrote to Trustee McGovern to kind of just set this up a little bit. I live at 35 Park Avenue at the corner of Miller and Park. And I was responding to an email chain that has been going on for 7 months regarding traffic calming measures for the area. And so here we are, it's the springtime, and there has been no action on this. And so I wrote this letter to the trustee, and I'm just going to read it here so it's on record. So again, my name is John Rosenblatt. I live at 35 Park Avenue. I have 2 small children, Olivia, who is 5, and Wylan, who is 10. As the corner house, our yard has become a meeting place for Wiley and Olivia's friends from the area, and it is common for there to be 5 or more children running around. My wife and I foster this playful environment, and it's one of the reasons why we moved here 11 years ago. As you are aware, the intersection of Miller and Park has a stop sign on all 3 corners. And as you all are well aware, that the Miller Park route is a well-known back way to commuters, as well as those who are living near the station. On Saturday, while 4 children were playing in our driveway, a ball entered Park Avenue. About this time, an SUV was racing down Park, clearly approaching the stop sign with no intent to stop. The SUV missed the ball by a few seconds tops and did not stop at the stop sign. I thought aloud about these agreed to speed bumps. And just to back up, my understanding, unless I have this wrong, is that there has been agreement that these traffic calming measures are needed. There has been a study. That study has concluded. And so as I was thinking aloud, about a day later, an email, the 7-month email chain popped up, and someone asked, what's going on? You know, as I read that email chain, I don't understand why, after the unanimous agreement that traffic calming is urgently needed, the completed study has been done, the budget has been allocated, why the bumps have not occurred and how the installation has not occurred. So I'm looking for action on this. You know, for me, it's clear, especially from the recent accidents that have happened. You know, it's not a question of whether someone will get hit in this area. It's an if, it's not a when. And so I'm here tonight to ask you guys when we can expect the traffic calming measures that have been agreed to be executed.
Okay, I can report on that, because I think.
Have Rich answer that, since we don't know
Yes,
the
hello.
answer.
Yep, so your information is actually not correct, that nothing's happened. The village retained the services of JMC traffic engineers. They've been working on a design. We've actually received their preliminary design, and it's going to involve department heads to take a look at. We found some flaws in the design, which we discussed with Trustee McGovern. We're going to ask them to make changes to their designs. Once it's done, at that point, we'll be prepared to go out to public bid. You know, the village, as a local government in New York State, is required to comply with the law, and we have to go through all the necessary steps. And as somebody here mentioned tonight, the wheels of government move slow, but we do have to comply with, you know, there's the world of things that everybody can do as an average person, and then the village has to follow the narrow steps that require us to comply with the law and bidding and other things like that. So we're moving ahead with that.
So what is the timeline on that?
I don't have
when
a
can we
timeline.
reasonably, when the changes and the flaws, can you discuss what they were and how big of a change it is?
They were putting speed humps in front of driveways and things like that.
So that shouldn't take long to sort,
No,
right?
it's, we did a review. There were, I think, 10 to 12 streets in other locations where the speed humps were going in, so it's being resolved. You know, there's other things we're working on here in the village, but they're gonna be getting them the comments shortly, and then we'll be moving on to finalizing the design phases.
Once it is finalized, how long of a process, when it goes out to bid, to execution is that?
It depends.
It seems like a pretty straightforward job, right?
It depends. It could be as much as 2 to 3 weeks to go out to public bid. There's bidding documents and other things that would have to be required. Public legal advertisement, that often takes a week, Carol. We'd be talking about a few months.
Is there, knowing the urgency of this, is there anything that we as community members can do to speed that up?
No. We're working on it. We've drafted the draft specifications. You know, other than breaking the law, which I would not encourage the village government to do.
No, but you could certainly call up, I mean, if it's a question of moving a matter of feet, a barrier, that shouldn't take weeks and weeks, that should take a day
No,
or
but this is
two.
not the only project we're working on.
Of course, but when you're saying that it goes out to, so you're not doing that work, though, that work happens with the contractor that you've hired, though, right?
I don't need to, I mean, it's being worked on. I'm not gonna get into a whole dissertation about the public bidding process and things like that.
I'm definitely not looking for a dissertation, I'm looking for some action, and so what's
I'm not-
disappointing is that there are no dates, there's a vague.
I
and-
can't
and
give
the-
you
and
a
the thing is-
timeline and say, this will be done by X date, and
Of
this will be done
course,
by X date.
no, in general, this year?
It'll be done, I said, a few months. I'm sorry if you missed that.
Okay, so a few months meaning 2 to 3 months, few meaning 2 to 3.
Correct.
Okay.
Rich,
Okay.
can I ask a question?
Please.
But you're not going to go to the answer. I'm going to ask Rich. How much you said it has to go out to bid. How much of a project, how big of a project in terms of money is this going to be?
That depends, honestly, on the materials we're using.
But we're expecting.
Well, the board
to
had
fall.
originally,
This is a bid, you shouldn't be giving out those kind of numbers.
no, I can't give it.
You can't even give out a
Karen, it'll be
ballpark?
tens
You
of
have-
thousands of dollars.
Tens of thousands of dollars, and that's why it takes longer to get these things done, because you
It
have
will-
to
it will
whittle
be
the
in its-
projects down, and there's all sorts of
I mean, listen,
things
we
that
have been
have to-
waiting 7 months. We've certainly been talking about it for years. Another 2 months, 3 months is great. Another 6 months is not. I mean, especially for something that is unanimously needed, is clearly needed. There's no disagreement. So it's just execution. And bureaucratic execution. I understand that, but and I think that's reasonable. 2 to 3 months. Anything longer than that is. I mean, the question, the thing is this: if somebody gets hurt or killed within that time, I want the reason why I'm here tonight with my son is I want us all to know that is a distinct possibility given the traffic, the increase, and the police park in front of my house to catch them, and so I see it every day.
But, I do want to go on record.
Please.
Miller Park, your street, is not a, you said you live on Park Avenue. The entire Miller Park is not a public, it's not a play street. It is a public road and thoroughfare. That means that cars are supposed to go, they're supposed to obey the rules of the road. and
That's all
things
we're
like
looking
that.
for.
But the kids should not be playing in the street.
They are not.
People should follow the rules of the road, and that
I mean,
includes.
they are
Hold-
not.
Hold on.
We're- yep.
So we acknowledge that there's a concern which the village government shares. We have to do our part, which means going through all the necessary steps of complying with the law, and we're working on that. So it's, it
Yeah,
will
no,
be-
I understand. But also, to be on the record, we're not talking about playing kickball in the middle of the street. We're talking about, and we're also talking about cars that regularly go 50 miles an hour up that street. And I have, I have shot with a GoPro, just put it in our front yard, hours of people going through this stop sign. And so, and I was hoping not to create a video, and I was thinking maybe I should create a video and post that, so people can see the degree at which this happens.
Well, we'll
And so-
certainly pass that along to the police department so they can step up the enforcement in the area. And that
The problem with that is that police enforcement is only good when they're there, and so the speed bump corresponds to the selfishness in people, and they don't want to mess their car up, so it works all the time. We know the effectiveness of speed bumps, and so that's what we're looking for, not to berate it.
Do you
But-
get the license on your GoPro?
Can you get the license plates on the GoPro? Maybe you can. It's an HD. I haven't zoomed in that much,
Good
but
shaming. Good
I do have hours of it, and it's remarkable, and it has increased a lot within the last 6 months or so.
Has it?
we appreciate you letting us know.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Since
Thank
the
you.
opening of the bridge.
We'll work on it.
My child wants to say something. Is that all right? Can you
Yes,
say
please.
There was a police that caught someone,
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
and after that, 5 cars ran the stop sign.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Well,
you.
Cop left. You
Thanks
have a
for letting
problem.
Yeah, no,
Thank
it's
you.
impossible to do it just with,
That's why
unless you could,
were there all the time. Yeah, that's why they were.
They're coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay. Anybody else on an agenda item?
What is cash?
Oh, you guys want to talk about the agenda item?
Is it on there?
Yes, it is on the
Yes, yes,
agenda that we're passing your contract,
Not the contract.
your contract
We were,
with Tash.
Oh,
we
no,
were here about the park.
that's not on the agenda, but you can certainly comment on that in relation to the contract, because it's, the contract's on the agenda.
You can comment on non-agenda items at any
Yeah,
time.
it's close enough.
Let her go.
What do you want?
What do you want to say?
Tell us, tell us.
Yeah, come, you can speak. We opened it
Well,
up, so
you have to-
we're at general comment.
Preparing to speak. We
Oh,
were
you-
just here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, do you want to take that item out of,
Discussion was on that.
you want to take that?
Well, if you have some, I mean.
It's only about the
it's-
contract.
It's,
I
but
mean,
it
I-
also, it sounds like that, from what Karen said, that sort of conclusion has been reached that we will put down an item for along the edge.
Yes, well, I think
of
we
the
were,
park for now, until we can have the time to fully install that whatever it's
well, I
called.
think we were also looking to put some asphalt down too.
No, I think that we all agreed that asphalt is very expensive, and for this season, item 4 will do the job, we'll fill in where there's mud, and then we will start on a timely basis, and we'll do it right, and,
Well, that means,
for the next year.
yeah.
Next, yeah,
We'll-
we'll have item 4 this year. and-
We'll have
probably
item 4
pre-bid it
this
in the,
year.
You know, late fall, early winter,
Right.
to have it lined up to go, you know, in March. But again, the same problem we experienced this year could happen again next year. It's weather dependent. So if we don't have warm enough weather to grow grass, we could certainly do the asphalt, we could do the membrane, but until we have that continuous warm weather, you know, we'll do everything we can and try to get it out there.
Well, the item 4 will be there until we.
The item 4 will be
undo
out
it.
there
The item
immediately. We
4
can take care of it immediately.
No, the item 4 is
Until we-
only gonna
until
be
we
there till
dig it
next
out,
year, because
the item 4
next
will be
year,
there.
we're starting early, and we're doing it right.
And I appreciate that, but if the elements are against us, what happens then?
If the elements are against us, we don't want to lose a Tash season,
Well,
so.
to be honest and fair, that's not exactly why we find ourselves at this point this year. It wasn't only the weather.
No, it wasn't only
We
the
were
weather.
only first talking about it and figuring out our options. Now we've done our homework and we know, we're just not done in time to get it done, so
That's part of the,
that was
Also,
part of it.
the bids came in higher, so we gotta go back to the drawing board, and it's.
yeah, the bids came in a lot higher.
So the hope is that, you know, given, the lead time we have now for next
Yes.
season, for next year, that.
It
we
should be
can
done.
Address all of that. so
Yep.
that-
And the only thing I can imagine is that if for some reason we can't get started
March 1st.
in March,
That's a different issue, though. I think
But,
that we could cross.
I mean,
Well, we can't
it'll
put-
probably, the project itself, I think the rough estimate, it'll take about 2 weeks to do it.
2 weeks to actually do the work.
Right, do the work. And then, but quite frankly, even if the grass isn't fully grown, the material we're gonna put down will protect it enough.
Yes.
And so, I mean, it's inconceivable unless we have contractors who don't show up or contractors who don't bid.
Right.
You know, something along those lines, or we run into something while you start doing the work, you find some hidden
Hmm.
Right.
thing that makes it
Well,
impossible to do. I can't,
Yeah.
I mean, it should be done. And
When we start, just so we know in our heads,
It's,
it would,
the goal would be to get it done, I'd say by mid-April.
right, okay.
And that's, I mean, really, we could start the site preparation work, let's say or mid-March. If we're facing a risk of snow or anything like that, we're not gonna do asphalt. You can't do that in cold weather. But you're gonna have to get hot mix asphalt after the plants are open. We could
Are we
plant
doing, oh, you wanted to expand the roadway a little bit?
a little bit. See, I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. We might have 2 different contractors, so that way we can, accomplish what we need to do. But, and Karen, we still want to do the asphalt strip and then the grass strip, right?
Well, I think there's one other option we haven't really, Drew has a newish thing, right?
No, that was temporary.
just a
That was just
temporary
temporary.
That's separate.
Yeah, Anthony seems to think that, there is some place where you have to widen the road and a little bit of asphalt will go a long way to do that.
Yeah.
And then, fix the sides of the
See,
road.
I'm wondering if we could do the asphalt this year and not impede the farmer's market. Maybe that might be an option, and then just do the 8-foot wide strip of the geotextile next spring.
Anthony seemed really relieved when we decided
Just going with
that,
the,
yeah,
item
that
4.
item 4, he really thought it was a much,
Anthony,
a much surer thing, And.
Let's just say, I'll talk with Dan and Anthony, and we'll see if that's the best way.
And we'll make a decision forthwith.
Okay, and I guess one of the reasons, once we had relocated our new park, we were talking about the asphalt and envisioning it. I guess it started to feel a little bit vague to all of us about like, do you have to, how long does it take to get a price for the asphalt, and how long does it take to get a company in here to do it, and can we get this done by May 25th? And then that's when the item 4 conversation came up, because that sounded like it was something that you could do in-house. It wasn't.
But that's the thing, with the asphalt, I think we could probably get the asphalt done, installed in a few days. As long as we do the proper prep, maybe 1 week we'd put down item 4, the following week we'd put down the asphalt. So that, I think with proper staging, we wouldn't stop the farmer's market from happening. So I'll talk with Anthony, and
I think that should be whatever
Anthony.
The solution enables them to open up without
I'll talk to Anthony
disruption
as the
on
foreman and Dan
May
as the
25th.
engineer to see what we can do this year.
Plus, Richard,
and improve
I
it.
think that if you do it like that, if you rush to put the asphalt down this year, because I'm not even sure why the item 4 wouldn't be good enough just for this year, but then you have done this asphalt work, and then next year you're gonna have another piece of it, and we could be like, oh, too bad we didn't do
So,
them
Karen,
together.
part of my concern is
because-
stormwater runoff. It's, we may solve one problem, create another. So let me talk with Anthony and Dan and see if we can do part of it.
We'll figure it out, and you will open on May 25th.
Yeah, either way, we're not doing anything to stop you from opening May 25th.
And I guess the other thing was, in our
No, I know why they're
conversation,
doing
it
it.
sounded like
Contract-wise, how they do it.
you guys have already decided to sort of rebid the project.
Yes.
Right, and I'm wondering, like, even though we're putting the project off now until next spring, can that bidding process take place now anyway?
It can't take place now. It's got to be within 2 to 3 months of the actual start time. Because if you do it too far in advance, the company's not going to keep the prices. They're going to have a hard time getting insurances and bonds, performance, things like that. It becomes difficult for them to figure out, is our gas prices going to go up? Are our material prices going to go up? There's too much variation in 9 months in advance of a project, or 12 months.
Do we already have a contractor for this?
We bid it twice. The first time Dan and Anthony actually bid it, I think it was late January, early February. We got no quotes. So they put it out to a second bid at request. I believe they contacted several contractors, between 3 and 5. The second bid, we got 1 quote, and that was $10,000 over the bidding threshold, so it would have had to be publicly bid. At that point, we told Suzanne and Tammy what was going on, and we had a meeting with Karen. So it's not like we weren't doing anything, it's just because of
No, that's not my question. I'm just trying to understand the process in terms of how we get from
Where
A
we-
to B.
Yes,
I don't even think the asphalt was included in those first two.
it was not, no.
It was not. So asphalt also adds a whole nother dimension in terms of cost.
But that's why I'm wondering if we could, and Karen, that's why I'm wondering if we could explore something like that this year.
So can I ask another question? Are we already under contract with an asphalt company to do roads?
It's different.
It's different?
It's different.
Okay.
That's an asphalt surface layer. What we're looking for is really more like a landscape contractor level.
Okay, so I got that. So how are we handling the item 4? I keep hearing item 4.
They could just get a truckload of item 4 and dump it next to the road.
So
but if-
we're doing that?
well, Anthony suggested that. I want to talk with Dan and Anthony and see if that's the best way to go. If it's a good temporary fix that'll last the year, I'm fine with it. I want to make sure it's the
Yeah,
good.
so DPW would be doing that.
DPW and Park would work together.
Okay, I understand the process.
Can I ask you one question? The item 4, the expansion, do you guys ever see yourselves outgrowing that area?
The whole park, you mean?
Yeah. Because when I think about everything that's going on and prices, if we do all this and all of a sudden it gets big, which I hope it does, it gets bigger, then all of a sudden we change the aesthetics of that park and then we gotta move it. Do you see yourself outgrowing that area
That's a good
at all?
question. That's an excellent question.
I don't see us outgrowing that area in the next few years.
Okay,
We've consistently been getting the same number of vendors applying
Right.
to be part of the market. The number of people attending the market is inching up, but it's not like ramping up in
Okay.
a crazy way, so I don't see that happening immediately. We also kind of have a real attachment
right,
to the
Okay.
park.
Yeah.
It's part of what I think what makes our market special. Most
No,
don't-
I
don't-
agree.
I don't
It's-
think anything that's being proposed actually would dramatically transform the look of the park at all.
No, what we're doing is,
I mean, you'd be spending money,
I
but.
just wanna make sure that we're doing it right, because
Right.
we're spending a lot of
Yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah, I'm
And
just
if we
saying,
go to do this,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they come out and say, "Hey, listen, we've outgrown this,
right.
then we put all this money and we widen the road and we change the aesthetics of the
Yeah, but
park.
basically,
It's a very minor expansion that they would be
Yeah.
talking,
Just-
and the grass we presumably
I hope
wouldn't
you do
even
outgrow,
notice.
I mean, I love going there, I do, I hope it does get bigger, but, yeah.
You know, one thing I would point out though is it does get bigger obviously there's a whole other half of the loop.
Right, there's a lot more room.
But there's a lot more room,
Yeah.
but that grass and that.
Well, that's the other thing, then you'd have to
Roadway
redo
is-
that
That's getting
roadway.
up too.
Right,
to the
okay.
same issue.
But, and not from your operation.
It's already happening.
It's happening because of parking from the
Right,
church,
Right,
so.
I mean, the solution that's out there would probably apply itself in a lot of ways and would look, it will look like good grass,
Yeah, it will look
actually.
nice.
So that's the beauty of it.
No, I just don't want to-
Right, no, I know. No, if they were gonna move shortly, you wouldn't do it, obviously, but.
Thank you.
Richard, I
Very
have
well.
just another question. So the item 4 would be the quick fix, and then next year you would do it the right way
Yes,
with asphalt.
yes.
That makes sense.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want to vote on that item now? Number,
Number 8, no, not 8. Nope, nope, where is it? Where is it?
It's 21, it's 21.
21?
It's the very
All right,
last thing.
don't leave yet, we're gonna do the resolution. Yes, good.
That's what you want.
Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown is hereby authorize and direct the village administrator to execute the operating plan of Rivertown's Village Green, Inc., RVG, for the operation of a farmer's market in Patriots Park for the 2019 farmer's market season.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Yay.
Very welcome, have fun.
Bye.
All right. Back to approval of the, let's,
We should get a coffee break.
no, you have, I got agenda items. You got an agenda item? I got it. He's got to talk on agenda items. Peter, do you have an agenda item you're going to speak on?
Well, can I ask a question, I guess?
Sure.
I mean, Hi, Peter Bartolak, G67 Miller. Where are we with the updates to the ARB?
It's continued.
I understand it's continued, but like, where are we? And are
There was
we
a-
close? Are we far away? Because it's been going on for a year, so.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, exactly. We sent it to the Architectural Review Board. We were hoping we'd get a comment back from them. They were missing some key members, you know, especially the chair at the April meeting, so they postponed it to May 15th. They're going to discuss it that night and then get us the comments back after that. So at this point, we've moved the hearing to, the continuation of the hearing to June.
Till June. We're not going to talk about it till June.
So if they're okay with the board's comments at that, you know, when they make their comments back to the board, if the board's ready, we can adopt it on June 17th.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, approval of transfer from position of automotive mechanic 2 to parks groundkeeper. Be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve the transfer of Jason McGuinn from the position of auto mechanic 2 to parks groundskeeper effective May 28, 2019, subject to all civil service rules and regulations and subject to the provision of the contract between the village and the CSEA.
Second.
All in favor? Appointment of automotive mechanic 1, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby appoint Reginald Waters to the position of automotive mechanic 1 effective May 28, 2019, at an annual salary of $76,916, subject to all civil service rules and regulations and subject to the provisions of the contract between the village and the CSEA.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Appointment of automotive mechanic 2. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby appoint James Harrish to the position of automotive mechanic 2, effective not before June 3rd, 2019, at an annual salary of $66,842, subject to all civil service rules and regulations and subject to the provisions of the contract between the village and the CSEA.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Can I, Richard, why is the language of that different from the usual? It says not before June 3rd?
Oh, because the position doesn't exist until June 1st. Yes, so currently the position is in the department as a caretaker cleaner. So as of, he's retiring at the end of May. So as of June
But there's some-
1st.
So there's some question about when it will
June
be
3rd is
available?
Monday, the first Monday of the new fiscal
Oh, I
year.
gotcha.
So he would.
Okay, so, but he conceivably might start after that?
Correct,
Okay, okay.
yeah. I don't think we have a set date yet, do we? Or,
Okay,
Yeah.
just that it won't be before June 3rd. Okay.
correct.
Appointment of labor in the Department of Public Works. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby appoint Christopher Gaspari to the position of laborer effective Thursday, May 13th, 2019, at an annual salary of $49,367, subject to all civil service rules and regulations and subject to the provisions of the contract between the village and the CSEA.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor? Appointment of a seasonal employee in the police department. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby appoint Sarah Pinella to the part-time position, seasonal position of intermediate clerk, police department, at an hourly rate of $13.50 per hour and 20 hours per week, effective May 20th, 2019.
So,
Second, all in favor? Fire Department membership change. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve the following Fire Department membership change recommended at the April 16th, 2019 Board of Fire Wardens meeting. Membership change, Scott Weaver Jr. has transferred from Hope Hose Fire Company to Riverside Hose Fire Company.
Second.
All in favor? Management, judicial, and part-time salaries. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve a 2.5% salary increase for individuals in the following job titles: Superintendent of Public Works, General Foreman Public Works, Village Administrator, Village Clerk, Village Treasurer, Deputy Village Treasurer, Court Clerk, Village Engineer, Building Inspector, Police Chief, Recreation Supervisor, Village Justice, and Acting Village Justice, effective June 1, 2019. And be it further resolved that the provisions in Article 5 of the Police Chief's contract may apply. Be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve an increase of 2% effective June 1, 2019, in the hourly rate paid for year-round part-time employees, not including the police department part-time administrative worker.
so moved. Second.
All in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from this resolution.
Okay.
And I'd like to thank the mayor and board, and on behalf of all the department heads and staff.
You're welcome. Master fee schedule update. Be it resolved that the master fee schedule for the Village of Tarrytown is hereby adopted as updated and amended based on the attached master fee schedule, and the updated master fee schedule will be attached to and made part of the official minutes of this meeting. With a note, the fitness center fees remain unchanged. Softball camp and picnics were all updated earlier this year, but are included in this master fee schedule for completeness.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Village Administrator credit card limit. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve an increase in the Village Administrator's credit card limit from $2,500 to $5,000.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
No spinning one.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right, we're gonna
Deputy
watch
Mayor,
those
what?
Amazon.
I wonder when the last time that was increased.
Probably not.
What's that?
I wonder when it was increased last.
I don't know,
I don't remember ever doing this.
10 years.
10 years ago?
Deputy Mayor wants to see receipts.
You get them. And just for the record, just for the
Beforehand.
record, as, you know, as the, just for the record, that's in order to assist the various departments with purchases online and things like that.
Yeah, we just saw an example of what happened where I had to carry a check up to
Yes.
Cooperstown for the NICOM conference because
Yep.
we didn't have enough credit.
That was me.
Yeah. Sleepy Hollow Sprint Triathlon. Be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby grant permission for use of the Riverwalk Park in Tarrytown from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. for the 11th Annual Sleepy Hollow Sprint Triathlon to be held on Sunday, June 16th, 2019, and be it further resolved that the Riverwalk Park will not be exclusive to the runners and will be open to the public, and be it further resolved that prior to the race, a certificate of insurance will be provided to the village.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Moderate Income Housing Committee. Whereas it is the recommendation by the Comp Plan Implementation Committee for the board to reconstitute the former Moderate Income Housing Committee, and whereas the Moderate Income Housing Committee's goals and objectives would be to discuss ways to amend the village code and incentivize an array of housing to meet the various needs of the Tarrytown community as they exist within our region. This would include millennial, affordable, senior, market rate, and assisted living housing. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby reconstitute the Ad hoc Moderate Income Housing Committee in the Village of Tarrytown and will adopt a formal mission statement and appoint membership of the committee with their terms included at a later date. Before we vote, I actually have a question on this.
Yes,
We're calling this the Ad hoc Moderate Income Housing Committee.
yes.
Now, is that distinct from what I
Well,
believe is in the code?
And that's the thing, there's a separate committee that's in the code based on Tarrytown's former affordable housing law.
Right.
Which, because the county's law supersedes
Right.
that, and we don't operate any housing, this would become a new, maybe we should revoke that out of the code, but.
Right, but this is now, but we're distinguishing this from the Moderate Income Housing Committee that is
Exactly
noted in the
right.
code. So it's
Is
ad
it-
hoc.
we're gonna set
so
up a
we
different
can-
mission.
Right, so we can clean up the language if necessary. Okay. All right, so it's, okay. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, agreement with Westchester County to Tarrytown Sleepy Hollow Summer Day Camp. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize and direct the village administrator to execute an agreement between Westchester County and the Village of Tarrytown to provide funding for the 2018 Tarrytown Sleepy Hollow Summer Day Camp program. Motion?
So,
All in favor? That was a good thing, where it's money that's coming from someone else. So, one of the few. Construction support services and SWPPP inspections, Riverwalk Extension. Be it resolved that B. Thayer Associates, the Riverwalk Extension design consultant, will provide additional construction support services, CSSS, for the Riverwalk Extension project construction, with up to 2 site visits and construction meetings per week for the April 1 to May 1 and August 30th to November 1, 2019 periods. In addition, B. Thayer Associates will provide an erosion and sediment control, E and SC, qualified inspector to perform required SWPPP. What is SWP? Shoreline?
Stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Stormwater pollution prevention program, okay.
Yes.
Once every 7 calendar days at locations where soil disturbance activities are ongoing during the Riverwalk Extension project construction and during shoreline restoration project construction during the period April 1, 2019 to November 1, 2019. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby authorize and direct the village administrator to execute an agreement with B. Thayer Associates of Woodbury, New York, per their proposal not to exceed $38,650.
one question.
Yes, sir.
The date here is April 1st and May 1st, which have passed.
Passed.
So have they done these inspections, or?
We were hoping to, actually, they gave the proposal earlier. We were hoping to have the project started, but because of the complications with the shoreline stabilization, it's just.
So how should we reword?
Yeah, so this-
It's awarded, we're getting them out there. Dan and Anthony had a construction progress meeting today with the contractors. We're trying to do some changes to the shoreline, which affects.
No, I understood that, but
Yeah.
based on the way this reads, it says
Right.
April 1st and May 1st, which means they've already done this.
So maybe we should just scrub May 1 and August 30th and just make it April 1 through November 30th, November 1, 2019. Because that's when the work's going to take place anyway.
Say again?
So
Just make it April 1 to August, to
April 1 to
November
November
1,
1st.
2019.
No, they didn't work in April, though.
They didn't work in April.
So maybe it was May.
David,
What this is saying, that they went out and inspected that site on those 2 days.
I understand.
Which they didn't do.
That's correct.
So. I'm
Not
just
yet.
saying
Well,
that-
actually, they will.
Yeah,
But there's a difference between will and doing it.
right,
Do you
so
wanna-
why don't we make this
you wanna
from
make it May 1
today,
through
or,
November
I mean, it doesn't matter, because if the contract period,
May 15th or something, because
Right.
they haven't done the work yet.
we'll do it from today, from May 8th
Today
to
May-
May 8th,
8th through
So
November
May
30th.
1st
or May
is-
9th.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
May
if they go
9th.
tomorrow.
May 9th.
So,
It's,
to amend this to say,
Well, honestly, I can't, let me backtrack on that, because we have started this fence work. And Vernon Hills has actually been out there trying to expedite everything so that we could start the softball season. So
but has B. Thayer been out
B.
there
Thayer has been here.
with other work?
Do I know if they've been here for a SWIP inspection? I don't know.
So just change it to May 15th or May 9th.
No, no, I think that what you're saying is that they might have
They might
done
have
one
already
of these
been here.
meetings for this, they may have done one of these
So why don't we
meetings.
say April
Meeting, we're talking
30th.
about a site inspection.
Tom, why don't we say April 30th through
Yeah,
November
that-
30th?
Okay.
So from April 30th to November 1st, 2019 will be the
April
relevant.
30th through November 30th.
November 30, 2019. What the other one says November 1.
I know, I understand that. We'll ask them to adjust the dates.
So
We'll-
we're going,
We'll adjust the dates in their proposal.
So amended.
so the resolution is going to read the dates. The first dates will be April 30th to November 30th, 2019, and the second will also read
Yes.
okay. So as amended, have a motion
Mr. Mayor, as amended.
and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We did this next one, and we're at minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees held on April 15th, 2019, as submitted by the village clerk.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the vouchers. Be resolved.
Hold on. Carol, did you have the, did we do the camp? No, we're gonna do that next time. Or we'll do it next time? Okay, good. All right, sorry.
Audited vouchers. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tarrytown does hereby approve abstract number 20 of audited vouchers in the total amount of $877,016.30 as presented by the village treasurer. And we're not reading these amounts, right? Can I have a motion?
So
Make a
moved.
motion.
All in favor? I mean, sorry, second?
Tom, Doug.
Yes?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Wow. That might be a first. And there's no other members of the public left, so I will take a motion for adjournment to executive session.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Long evening, and we will not be back. Happy Mother's Day on Sunday.
That's right, Wednesday.
Yes.